I don't know if I made enough, but if I didn't, you can make more. I call myself thrifty, so I only made 30 copies, and I hope that's enough. Uh, I have a tendency to um, go the short side of things. Um, Kerry tried to work on me a little bit the last time we was in there to make more, but he wasn't in there today, so. I can't see up there. Is it on? The lights are blinding me. Oh, that's because I'm looking down there and it's back here. Probably just need to turn it on. No, it is on. I don't know what I did, but it's on now. Okay. I thought I was done, and Mitch called me and said, "You're not done." So you have to bear with me one more time. So we're going to just begin at the beginning of Acts, the 14th chapter. I'm not exactly sure where we left off. I didn't mark anything down because, as I stated, I thought we were done. So I chose not to mark anything down at that time. But we'll begin in Acts, the 14th chapter. And I know for some of us, if you will, the book of Acts, as we've talked about in the past, the book of conversions, and I would say that it's probably a book that, for the most part, has been taught over and over the years, especially in small congregations. But I don't know when's the last time it was taught here, but I enjoyed teaching it because I told you before that being the book of conversions, as it's called, or the Acts of the Apostles, we deal with those outside of the body of Christ. It helps for us to be able to recollect where to go, where to turn to when it comes to a lot of the different conversions. As we only got to the 14th chapter, we really didn't get into the many conversions that are ahead, but we've got into a few, and we've seen the results of the early church and how it grew. I think oftentimes, I might have mentioned this before, but I think about when Randy and Kerry and them go over to the Philippines, where they're spreading the gospel to those, and in some cases, haven't heard it at all. And the field is quite ripe, if you will. And so I know that has to be encouraging for them. And I think about trying to spread the gospel here, and specifically in this state of California. It can be sometimes more difficult and less receptive. So the opportunity to look at the growth of the church in the book of Acts and the results of what, as the word was spread to the Jews first and then to the Gentiles, recognizing that many Jews and many Greeks were converted. We'll just begin here. Go ahead and begin in the 14th chapter. I'll read verses 1 and 2. In Iconium, they entered the synagogue of the Jews together and spoke in such a way that a large number of people believed, both of Jews and of Greeks. But the unbelieving Jews stirred up the minds of the Gentiles and embittered them against the brothers. So we can see even now as the word is being spread and there was a large number receiving it, it offended some, specifically those Jews, and they were bothered that there was many turning to Jesus Christ. And I think that we live in a country that we can pretty much speak freely. Like I said, in the state of California, the reception or receptive, but if you go into the South, you can see what they call the Bible Belt. You can see the word being spread and really more open-mindedness in studying the word. I hope that doesn't change, but who knows how things go forward. But anyways, did anybody that wanted the questions get them? I have some extra ones here if you didn't get any. Oh, and wanted one. All right. I like to teach this way. I can choose to go either way, getting in depth or letting the scriptures themselves, they're before us, and ask a question, and and we dig that answer right out of the verses that are before us. And there's many different ways to teach. I've chosen to do it this way. It's easier for me, and so you're stuck with it. I thank you for your time. It has been a pleasure, by the way, to stand up here before you. It's been a while, and I was thinking if it'd be this number of years for the next time, I'm not sure that there's enough that memory medication. I don't know if there's enough out there to help me through it. All right. Upon their arrival in Iconium, what did Paul and Barnabas first do? Again, it's right before us in the scriptures. And I like for you to dig it out as rather than to show you the answer.
They went to the synagogue.
Pardon me?
They went to the synagogue.
Okay, yes, they did. As they entered the synagogue of the Jews together and spoke in such a way that a large number of people, both of Jews and of Greeks, were believing. Did this cause problems? Yes, it did. Anyways, the answer: upon their arrival in Iconium, they entered the synagogue of the Jews, and many of the number believed. Question number 2, what did the unbelieving Jews do in response? And that goes to my second point. I always get ahead of myself. I answer the question before I present the question.
They plotted against Paul and Barnabas with the leaders of the Gentiles who stoned them.
Well, that's coming up, yes. That'll be in the next couple of verses. Specifically here in verse 2, the unbelieving Jews stirred up the minds of the Gentiles, and of course, that leads to what you were bringing out. All right, question number 3, or verse number 3. Therefore, they spent a long time there speaking boldly with reliance upon the Lord, who was testifying to the word of his grace, granting that signs and wonders be performed by their hands. Question: what did Paul and Barnabas do, and who was with them, and how did they do it? I ain't going to answer. You're going to make me answer it, aren't you? Okay. They stayed with them, of course, a long time, speaking boldly in the Lord. You know, again, I think about that with the concerns that they might have, specifically later on, where Paul was stoned, and things that took place for many of the apostles. And if you were to look at the long line of deaths that happened, I'm not sure any of them. Was there any that died just basically natural causes?
Probably John. According to tradition, John was the only apostle that lived and died through.
Well, true, because I mean he wrote the book of Revelations later on. So, but otherwise, pretty much had deaths that were pretty horrifying, really. Anyways, they stayed with them for a long time, speaking boldly, and the second part, the Lord who bore witness to his word by granting signs and wonders to be done by the apostles' hands. I think that's when you're having, we have the word before us. We have our Bibles. We can open up our Bibles and turn to them. They did not have the word before them in written form, if you will. So how did the word come about? By inspired men who were inspired, of course, by the Holy Spirit. But anyways, and so the necessity for signs and wonders was needful at this point in time. What did, how did Paul say it later? Is it 1 Corinthians 13th chapter? How did he say it? I think it's 1 Corinthians 13. I could be wrong. I must be wrong because nobody's coming forth. Pardon me? Me? I don't want to take a shot. I'm asking the questions. No. You're brutal. Anyways, basically, in 1 Corinthians, we see that now I'm it's not 1 Corinthians 13. I'll get to it in a moment. I'm having a moment where it's not 1 Corinthians 13, I don't believe. So that's why I can't quote 1 Corinthians 13 because it's not there. All right, let's move on and maybe it'll come to my brain here in a minute. But the people of the city were divided, and some sided with Jews while others with the apostles. And when an attempt was made by both the Gentiles and the Jews with their rulers to treat them obviously abusively and to stone them, they became aware of it and fled to the cities of Lycaonia, Lystra, and Derbe, and the surrounding region. And verse 7 says, and there they continued to preach the gospel. So we see question number 4 is the city became divided. What attempt was made against Paul and Barnabas? To stone them. In that case, that's a pretty drastic measure, if you will. At this point, that it comes to mind that they were. I like to say, like in Acts the 19th chapter, when the idols, those that made the idols, were affected by those that were teaching Christ, and what did it affect them mostly? Where did it hit them? In their pocketbook. And so
That was the Hellenistic Greeks. The Hellenistic Greeks that were making statues of the goddess Diana.
right. Question number 5, how did they respond to such a threat?
They split.
Lisa?
They fled the city and went to the surrounding cities.
Right. And we see that quite often. You know, Paul, what did he tell the Corinthians? I wash my hands of you. I'm going to move that to the Corinthian Jews, and to go to the Gentiles. Then they fled to the cities, as we said, Lystra and Derbe. They began preaching the gospel there. In Lystra, could I get someone to read these verses 8 through 12? You can either choose to read them off the board or... Okay, great.
Verse 8.
8 through 12, please.
Now at Lystra there was a man sitting who could not use his feet. He was crippled from birth and he never walked. He listened to Paul speaking, and Paul, looking intently at him, seeing that he had faith to be made well, said in a loud voice, stand upright on your feet. And he sprang up and began walking.
Go ahead, 11 through and 12 as well.
And when the crowd saw what Paul had done, they lifted up their voices, saying, Lycaonians, the gods have come down to us in the likeness of men. Barnabas they called Zeus, and Paul Hermes, because he was the chief speaker.
Okay, so we see here in these 4 verses, or 5, we can see that there was a man that could not walk from his mother's womb. As Paul was speaking, Paul looked at him intently. What would that say to us when someone looks at you intently, if you will?
Interested in what they were preaching.
Pardon me?
He was interested in what they were preaching.
Right. Paul is looking to them, and they were definitely interested in what Paul was saying. But when someone looks at you intently, they're, I don't know, strong gaze might be a term that we might use, but that's a good way to put it. Thank you. All right, what miracle did Paul perform in Lystra? Again, these questions go right back to the scriptures that we just read.
Healed the lame man.
Okay. And I like to, this man was known because he'd been crippled from birth. So it's not like, poor example, but I think back to when I was a kid. I know that's hard to imagine that far back, but well, most of us in here we can imagine. But anyways, there was kind of how do you say, it was kind of common to try to have a gathering and people were staged and there was a healing. And of course, after a while, that became known that these were fake. But at the time, a lot of people were caught up in this phenomenon. But the thing about this, these were not like we see in Acts, Simon the sorcerer, where he was fooling people, but he was intrigued when he saw Philip, performing the signs and wonders. Of course, unfortunately, he wanted to purchase this power, and so when he was trying to purchase it, was he trying to do it so he could make money? Was he trying to do it so he could be powerful in front of other people or recognized by others? The scriptures really doesn't say, it does imply some, but it doesn't say exactly what his intentions were. But I think for the most part, the emphasis upon him was definitely that he was doing it for the wrong reason. Okay, question number 7. How did the people react? What names did they give to Paul and Barnabas?
Zeus and Hermes.
That's the names that they gave to Paul and Barnabas, okay. So that reaction would be what?
They recognized them to be gods.
Okay. I like the way oftentimes, like if you read, when the crowd saw, in verse 11, what Paul had done, they raised their voice, saying in a Lycaonian language, the little gods, the gods have become like men and have come down to us. The scriptures recognize that it was not deity. And anyways, how did the people react? They thought they were gods and had come in the likeness of men. And they, again, as you stated, Barnabas was called Zeus and Paul called Hermes. Did they allow this to go on? I might be getting ahead of myself, but I don't think that question is coming out. But did Paul and Barnabas allow this to take place?
They told them that we are mere men, that they weren't gods.
Just like you, right? All right. Can I get someone to read verses 13 through 18? Jeff.
The priest of Zeus, whose temple was just outside the city, brought oxen and garlands to the gate and wanted to offer sacrifice with the crowds. But when the apostles Barnabas and Paul heard of it, they tore their robes and rushed out into the crowd, crying out, and saying, "Men, why are you doing these things? We are also men, the same nature as you, and preach the gospel to you, that you should turn from these vain things to a living God, who made the heaven and the earth and the sea and all that is in them,
I think this kind of has some similar connotation of the 17th chapter of Acts when Paul was in Athens and he wants to talk to them about who? The unknown God. You know, the God that you worship in ignorance is the God who made the heavens and the earth, and not the gods that you made with your hands. And so I think about that as being similar to what is being stated here in the verse 13 through 18. Who attempted to lead the city in offering sacrifices to them? Did you say the Jews?
People that were listening, they were so amazed about what was going on. They thought they were amazing, so they wanted.
Well, the ones that really the priest of Zeus, whose temple was in the front of the city, which is correct, but there was more so that the pagan, those in the temple, the priest of Zeus, whose temple was in the front of the city. So I had like questions in my mind on that. You know, as does anybody have any more background on the priest of Zeus? I didn't take the time to look it up. I was just curious if somebody had taken the time.
There were temples to the Greek gods all over this area.
Right.
And each temple had a cadre of priests who managed all the sacrifices that those who were in idolatry would bring to the temple, so that they could, in their mind, they were pleasing to God.
Right.
So it was very common for, when we went to Corinth, there was the temple to Apollos, and they had their priests and sacrifices. This way they got income.
Right. I was thinking here, you know, as this being just outside the city, that it would be one of the first place you'd come across, if you will, before you entered the city, you know, and wanting to have a choice location. I don't know if that's a good way to look at it, but that's kind of how I thought about it. Question 9, how did Paul and Barnabas restrain the crowd from offering the sacrifices?
Well, they rebuked him for doing it.
Okay,
It wasn't like they tried to stop him. It's, why are you doing this?
right.
That was they trying to engage them in some sort of conversation about it. It's frustrating when you think you're really getting through to people, and then all of a sudden they come after you like they weren't listening at all to it. So that's what I think was happening here.
Right. Everybody hear that? So in recognizing here to restrain the crowd from offering the sacrifices, we see that by tearing their clothes and crying out to the multitude, and by professing themselves to be but mere men, encourage them to turn to the living God. And again, the contrast to those that were made by man, the images that were made by man, and the God of heaven and earth and the sea and everything that is in them, made by the powerful hand of God. All right, and saying, verse 15, men. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to bring up verse 14 and verse 4, both use the term apostles. And they refer to not only Paul as an apostle, but Barnabas as an apostle. Well, we know he was never appointed as an apostle. But this is where they go back to the Greek, and the English term apostle comes from the Greek term apostolos, which is a general term. I mean, they would call ambassadors, they would use apostolos, they would preachers. There was a variety of offices that in the Greek language they would use that term apostolos to identify. And so in both verse 4 and verse 14, where it says apostles, it is that word, apostolos. But sometimes we might erroneously assume that they're using this term because they're referring to the 12 apostles. Because of those who were traveling in this chapter, only Paul is an apostle. Barnabas was never appointed as a quote-unquote apostle to that office, but he was a preacher. So that's why in the Greek it uses apostolos. And sometimes, you can look at that and think, what's going on? I think the publishers should have realized that that would lead to confusion. Thinking, when we read it, we're thinking the apostles were, from Acts chapter 2. Well, that's not how the term is used here in these verses. It's just a generic term as one who is sent.
Ambassadors of Christ. So, they spread the word. But that's a good point that you bring out. I think that I've often trying to think of the passage where I was trying to think where there again, I'm having trouble remembering things these days, so I apologize. One of these days I'm going to think before I talk. See, if I didn't bring it up, you wouldn't know that I was having trouble doing this. Anybody else recognize that? I probably do. It'd be best to just, if you don't have it right at the tip of your tongue, don't bring it up. All right, how did the apostles describe the true God? He's the one that did what? He's a true living God. He made the heavens and the earth and the sea and everything that is in him. So that's a powerful point that the writer Luke here is bringing to us. All right, but Jews came from Antioch and Iconium, and having won over the crowds, they stoned Paul and dragged him out of the city, thinking that he was dead. But while the disciples stood around him, he got up and entered the city. The next day he left with Barnabas for Derbe, and after that had preached the gospel to the city and had made a good number of disciples. They returned to Lystra, to Iconium, and to Antioch, strengthening the souls of the disciples, encouraging them to continue in the faith, and saying, "It is through many tribulations that we must enter the kingdom of God." When they had appointed elders for them in every church, having prayed with fasting, they entrusted them to the Lord in whom they had believed. I'm not going to take too much time in the appointing of the elders in the churches. scattered around, but I think there was a need for leadership in the infancy of the church. And so they were men of strong faith, but to say that each and every one of them had the things that are stated there in Timothy, and in recognizing how we choose elders today. But the bottom line is, who made this determination? To me, it kind of goes back to when Matthias was chosen and the lots were thrown or put before. Ultimately, God made the decision, to choose the one to replace Judas, or there in Acts, the first and second chapters, actually the first chapter. So we see there was prayer there, here, when they had appointed elders for them in every church. Who was involved in this? At least at the bare minimum, it would be Paul and Barnabas, but for sure Paul. It's I just think that in either case, God's hand was involved in the choosing of the elders here. We talk about praying, or laying on of hands, and fasting, and in the early church, we see that. Of course, we pray. I don't know how much most of us, don't say a word, fast. When you're looking at me, don't you say it. But who knows how much or why we do not do that today. What are your thoughts on that, just real briefly?
Justin and I were just talking about this. There's more recent kind of trend or studies in the health area that fasting actually does a lot of good for the body. And Justin made the comment like, oh, God, prescribing that to the Israelites in the Old Testament, he did a lot of things, or told them to do a lot of things that were actually really beneficial to them, where, whether there was like the hyssop and the antibacterial properties that had for their cleansing, or, just fasting itself being such a beneficial thing for your health. I really thought about that, and it's trending, like a lot more people are starting to do that just for health reasons.
Right. I think that it's can be a state of mind that it helps our mind focus. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think when we take the time to prepare in a day not to partake of food, or in prayer and fasting, in that sense of discipline that one may have in recognizing this. Anybody else have any thoughts? Yes?
Well, my thought would be just that it definitely can be done today, but we don't do it to be seen as man. So,
Yes.
Taking common meals was a tradition in their culture, and it was the way they came together, they would share thoughts, enjoy themselves, whatever, and so setting themselves apart gave them a focus that was not, part of that cultural thing from house to house. So it was a way for them to focus their mind, perhaps, and stay apart, whatever.
Sure. Yes, Carrie?
There was, we go to 1 Corinthians 12 and 1 Corinthians 14, there was a variety of gifts, miraculous gifts that were available to those who had Paul had laid his hands on. And of those gifts, more than one mentions miraculous gift of knowledge, miraculous gift of wisdom. One version calls it discernment. So they could, at that time, they could appoint elders. Both Paul and Barnabas could have done it because they had the ability to reason miraculously and identify those who would be qualified as elders, which obviously we can't do today because those gifts are non-existent.
Right.
Back then, I could see how they had no problem saying, you, and you are elders, and they would know miraculously their character and such, and had every right to appoint them.
Any other thoughts? Somebody else had their hand up there. Was it you, Robert? No? Somebody else had their hand up, though. Jeff, did somebody back there, a male? Must have been somebody else. Another one of my imaginaries. So,
Fasting is something that takes you out of your normal routine. What do we usually do when we get up in the morning? What am I going to eat? Then comes lunchtime. What am I going to have for lunch? And we spend a lot of time doing that. And this is suggesting that we separate ourselves from that side, that sort of habit or whatever you want to call it, to give time to prayer and to consideration for the choice that you're trying to make. So that's the way I
so if I don't eat breakfast every day and wait till lunch, that's not called fasting?
I don't know, there you are with a question again, Richard. You're going to have to answer that for yourself.
I think I answered it. Yes, I did. Who then came to the city and persuaded the people to stone Paul? As always, I mean, Jews would be the ones leading that. And after Paul recovered from his stoning, where did he and Barnabas go? Derbe, and then they went to Lystra, Iconium, and Antioch of Syria, I think that is. Where'd the clock go? The preacher doesn't want it up there anymore?
That was it. You got it again, Richard.
Pardon me?
You picked the right answer again. No, it fell off the wall. And that's probably why I don't see it.
Oh, it was a divine intervention. Where did my phone go? I hear people out there, so. Oh, man, you guys are long-winded. I feel like a preacher now. No, I got to stop doing that. We don't have that problem here, but years ago. Our time is up. I appreciate your comments and questions and thoughts. It's been interesting for me to do this, and this being my last class, I just wanted to thank you for your time, and hopefully, it's hard to get back in, to let you know it's hard to get back into it when you haven't done it. In times past, I was doing it every Lord's Day, preaching, teaching, and et cetera. It was a lot easier. And so now, getting back into it after quite a few years not doing it has been. Thanks. All right, our time is up, past time apparently. So thank you for your time, and again, I appreciate your everything.